when Bamdele reached out and said he wanted me to speak, I had a hard time thinking about what am I going to talk about. I've spent some time doing startup work, and I'm still asking myself, do I really know anything? Right? Because something about the startup world is it will either puff you up or humble you, right? Ideally, it should humble you no matter how successful you become. Yeah, but yeah, it can drive you crazy. And driving you crazy could be you're struggling and it's driving you crazy, or you've made crap loads of money and you've gone mad, right? So it happens both ways, yeah? But today I just want to talk about something that actually leads to success in the startup world. I know that like everyone here should be like UX designer, am I correct? Most people are so people are just general startup operators here. So yeah, I think I'm still good. All right, so next slide. I'll start with a story. Next slide, please. I'll start with an interesting story. So as they take their time, I can take more time, yeah? Beautiful. All right, so it was 2020, right? Or 2021, I can't remember. But I'm very certain that COVID was over, right? And we're kind of struggling. We have this product called, see, I have more time. We have this product called Seller. Please, the slide 2. Yeah, and you can see some of the ads there. So Seller was essentially Shopify, but for Nigeria. We're very fancy in our thinking at the time. It was a great product. The UX was special, right? And we're convinced that, okay, I think this will work. I mean, personally, I had my doubts because I was like, Julius is struggling, Conga is struggling, where will a Shopify for Nigeria thrive? But for months we poured in money, and the more we poured in money, it felt like we're just incinerating cash, like we're struggling. It was mind-bending. Can you imagine working hard, so hard every day, and people just don't want what you're selling? I mean, and your life is on the line. Fortunately, I was not married, I didn't have a girlfriend. So the pressure wasn't much at that time. At that time, I didn't have any of those pressures. Trust me, it's different once you have responsibilities, especially when you have those little kids. They don't negotiate their bills. They're hungry, you buy the food. You don't have the money, you look for the money. You don't know how to look for the money, get something in your house, pawn it, give them their food. Those kids don't negotiate, but I mean, at the time, we're still a little reckless. I didn't have any commitments. So one day, I got pissed off. If you look at that map, somewhere at the bottom there, that's the beginning of Okpebi, where you have cakes and creams. And at the end, that's the end of Allen, the Allen roundabout. I woke up in the morning, picked up my laptop, put it in my bag, took my phone, and a pen and a jotter. I walked into every store between Okpebi Allen and between Okpebi and Allen Avenue, the end of Allen Avenue, also entering the streets. That's about 4 kilometers, right? Every store, knock. I want to find out who is the owner of this store. I'd like to speak to you. I wasn't selling. I literally just wanted to know, what is it about what we are building that is not resonating with these people? Trust me, I know it sounds crazy. At the end of the day, I was literally, I was fagged out, like I was done, right? I walked into every store, and after I just asked the simple questions around, so Shopify is essentially infrastructure for you to scale your retail operations. So instead of doing things manually, taking orders via WhatsApp, everything is just happening in an automated format, right? So I walked into every store. I know it sounds crazy. If a startup has driven you crazy before, that would feel normal, right? But by the end of the day, something began to dawn on me, right? We had designed a perfect interface for a reality that did not exist. Literally, that's what happened, right? Next slide, please. So, software API. So, this room designs interfaces, user flows, information architecture, bridge between the technology and the human being. But the human API, which is what your software API should be built on, is literally very messy. It changes, based on trust. It can be very funny. Anxiety can impact how a customer is thinking about your product, who vouches for you, whether the price makes some sense or makes the person feel stupid for paying for it. I've ever felt stupid after paying for something, right? And in Africa, the human API is very different from what sometimes user personas suggest. And it's extremely different from the way you think about it in America, Europe, and sometimes our neighbor in quotes, India. Literally, it can be very different. Nigeria can be very what? All right. When I was in advertising, I wouldn't say the brand, very luxury spirit brand, alcoholic brand. I didn't work on it, but I just got into the agency and I was seeing them, work on it. And they told me that when the brand did their research about Nigeria, they had planned that it's only rich people that will buy it. Lo and behold, when the thing landed, our boys, they will find a way to put money together to buy it, right? So they were literally very confused that, what's going on in this country? It means that every country has their peculiarities. The human beings have serious peculiarities that can make or mar your strategy. Next slide. Right? Now the human interface, the human API is the interface very few founders and operators design well, if at all. Very few people do this, which is why the mortality rate for building technology products generally is very high. But when you think you can just import Silicon Valley to Africa, there's a way he said it, but he will tell you. I'm telling you, you will learn. How does VDM say? You will learn. Yes, you will learn the hard way. All right, so next slide. Yeah? So one of the things we'll talk about, I'm just trying to bring tech into it so it doesn't feel like a different environment. We'll talk about the 4 endpoints that human API is built with. And the good thing is that you guys already know it. You were taught in secondary school. Next slide. Problem, okay, not entirely secondary, but you guys should know it. Problem, product, pricing, promotion. These are the 4 simple things that this thing is built on. It's not hard to understand how it works. The hard part is executing it, I will agree, right? It's like a sports team. You guys have agreed on your strategy, on your game plan. I know how this guy said it, Mike Tyson, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. You get into the arena, it's not working the way it was working in your head. And so you start trying every silly thing you can, or any brainwave that flows through your head. Yeah? And it's also very easy to miss if you are given to fancy stuff. If you are given only to sophistry, right? If you want to duplicate Silicon Valley here, you will learn the what? Beautiful. I think we're in the same room. So let's talk about the first endpoint, which is the problem. That's reading unspoken data. Because data is everywhere, but we miss the point almost every time. Am I correct? If you go online, you see data about everything. Okay, maybe some few things they are very, poor data points, right? So the question is, next slide. Oh, I've gone 3 slides ahead. Next slide, next slide, next slide, next slide. Beautiful. What are humans actually anxious and frustrated about? You see that part? That's where it all starts from. I know we have heard this, probably you've heard this several times, but the truth does not change just because you feel desperate, just because you want to get something out there now. I'm telling you, you can have a productive day if all you did was spending time understanding what problems are worth solving. That's a productive use of your day, right? Before you start building your product. I'm telling you, you can pay yourself a salary if there's money for it, for spending enough time doing it the right way. Yeah? So, next slide, please. I'll talk about the seller product. So, with seller, we thought we were predicting the market correctly. All our assumptions kind of checked out in our head. I mean, it doesn't make sense, right? Your processes are already inefficient as a business. You use your WhatsApp, Instagram, Facebook, and sometimes Messenger as your storefront. I mean, right? Yeah? Yeah, that's where you put all your products, your WhatsApp status, your WhatsApp broadcasts, your Instagram page. That's literally your storefront. Do you know where checkout is? Checkout is your DM. If Meta, across all their apps, are able to use AI to figure out what 1K means, 2K means, and all the likes, and curate how much has been transacted through DMs in Nigeria alone, if they can figure out how to convert it to flow through them, literally fintech, ultimately, because it will be trillions of naira, not billions. Am I correct? Right? So we literally thought we were correct, but the human data was screening something else, right? And next slide, please. It was screening something else. Literally, it's like it was literally after that long walk I did, right? 4 kilometers, started about maybe 10 a.m., finished about 6 p.m., right? I learned something. Most Nigerian businesses at that time were struggling to find customers, right? And if you're struggling to find customers, nothing else will matter. Am I not correct? You cannot scale what is not working, right? In our world, we'll call it product market fit when you figure out what is working. Most Nigerian businesses are struggling, literally. They need to brief, as they say. So what the data showed from that and several other interfaces that we had was that there was anxiety and there was survival. And unfortunately, we're building efficiency when they were in panic mode for revenue, right? I'm telling you, I can see some of those conversations in my head today. I made lifelong friends from that day. From those customer interviews, I made lifelong friends from there. Yeah? So, next slide. What was our real competition that we were not aware of? Our real competition was Meta's Hydra consumer apps. WhatsApp, Facebook, Instagram, Messenger. In hindsight, I think we're literally crazy people to go against them, but we're also very ignorant. I mean, who would have known that building a Shopify for Nigeria means I was competing? If I was building Shopify in an emerging market, I'm literally competing against WooCommerce, right? I'm competing against Shopify, and I can't remember the other competitive, other competitors we were looking at the time. But our competition was social commerce, as we learned the hard way. We had poured in so much money because we kind of had patient capital coming in that was willing to wait for as long as possible. But then it was frustrating, literally very frustrating. Next slide, please. Right? So that's where this concept now comes to play. Non-consumption versus alternative consumption. We thought we were solving non-consumption. That is where people are doing nothing because they've given up on all the methods that they know to do to get that same thing done. I'll give you an example. I don't know if we're all old enough to know this, but before Paystack and Flutterwave came in, right, or even InterSwitch, many people did not bother thinking about how will I solve the problem of collecting, payment at scale, besides giving you my bank account, and you probably need to go to the bank, or you come and bring cash to my house, my shop, right? People did not think about how to get customers from outside their physical environment or their physical storefront, or the person going to the bank, to pay them money, and you confirm. I can't remember how would they have confirmed payments back in those days, right? Yeah, right. So in a sense, there was a dynamic of non-consumption happening because there was a need, there was a desire, but the solutions were either too expensive, too complicated, or inaccessible, right? At that time, we misread the market. What we thought of as non-consumption in the e-commerce industry was alternative consumption. People using informal solutions that fit their context at that time, right? Some of these businesses that we spoke to were customers. They actually turned out to be recurring customers, right? They will come over and over again. They were paying their subscriptions. But those number of businesses were not enough to create a viable business for us. Does it make sense? All right. So the problem wasn't what people said was broken. Because some of these people that use WhatsApp said it's stressful, but that was not the problem, right? The real problem is what keeps them up 3 a.m. in the morning thinking about how do I do this thing? How do I even make enough money to hire my first person? Or some people, how do I make enough money to pay salaries, right? Or it is December is approaching and you are thinking about how do I even make enough money to give more than this small salary that they are getting, maybe a bonus or 13th month, right? So it's understanding whether they are doing nothing or doing something entirely that they are comfortable with that is sustainable for them, right? If what you're bringing to the table doesn't blow their current options off the table completely, you probably are going to struggle, right? Next slide, please. So we'll go to product. The second endpoint. That's the solution to the anxiety, constraints, or frustration that they have. Next slide. So does your product respond to the actual human data or the one that you have been imagining? It's a big question you need to answer. Now, I know we're supposed to talk about UX, design, blah, 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 but the most important thing for you to design is the thing that will allow the UX design actually make business sense. Does it make sense now? All right, so we'll talk about products. Does it respond to the actual problem? So assuming you have actually found a problem worth solving, a problem where if you unlock consumption, right, you have unlocked a market that nobody was looking at for the longest time. Are you guys getting my point now? So a Paystack literally came at the right time, right? People wanted to make more money. People were using social media. The internet was going wild in Nigeria. The number of smartphones in the country was increasing at a dramatic rate. Number of laptops, internet infrastructure was improving significantly, at least within the Nigerian context. Don't compare it to overseas. It's literally different, right? Banks were using internet banking, mobile payments. So there was the payment side that was getting solved, right? But there was still something that was not solved to make people, okay, I'm doing business. I want to collect money from somebody in Kafang-Chan. How do I make that happen? I want to collect money from somebody in Katsina. in Sokoto, right? How do I make that happen? Or even in another part of the world, right? Next slide. I'll just give you. Oh man, I've moved further. Please keep going. Keep moving. Keep moving. Keep moving. All right, beautiful. So I'll talk about and I'm using my own story just to make sure that I'm not talking, theory to you, right? So in 2019, there's a product called AdPay. I don't know if anybody has ever heard of it or used it. But with AdPay, you can pay for Google Ads in Naira. I'll talk about how we arrived there. So AdPay's atomic units, that's like the most important engine. So let me tell you, atomic units for Uber is your ability to book an app, a ride, and for somebody inside the ride to pick your ride, and for you guys to pay. That's the atomic unit, yeah? Every other thing, food, blah, 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 those are fancy additions compared to the atomic unit, right? Paystack's atomic unit is I can create an interface, set up my own account, customer clicks, types, puts their card details or whatnot, and you get your money, right? So we had the atomic unit for what became AdPay, but we ignored it because it didn't seem relevant. And at the time, Naira was still fairly okay. We're complaining about Naira that was, maybe it was 100 Naira and 150 Naira at the time. I can't remember how much it was in 2019. But we thought it was bad. Had we known. We thought it was bad, right? So the pay wasn't painful enough. Then we between 2020 and maybe 2022 to Q3, we tried Seller, like I mentioned. It felt like I was dragging a dead horse. A horse is meant to carry you. You're not meant to drag it, right? If you are building wrong, you're going to be dragging a dead horse. Literally, you'll be dragging a dead horse.
Imagine that I'm supposed to be driving. Okay, imagine that instead of you driving a car, you're pushing it. Right? So you just have the car for the sake of having it. You're pushing from Bega to Ikoyi. Kukuma just die. Right? Because it was just slow. It was slow. We're pouring in more money than we could see any money out of it. So I think Q3 of 2022, we're really frustrated. So we said, what, this thing that we've had, that people just come once in a while and say we want, let's look at it, right? That time we're even charging 2% for using the service. Let's look at it and see if there's any hope there, right? And we now created like a proper, manual product workflow for it and pushed it out there. Ladies and gentlemen, we found a living horse. That thing galloped, man, like it was crazy. It was crazy. The experience was crazy. I can't speak to the numbers because I prefer to be under G, right? But it was galloping, bruh. It felt like I switched from a keke marwa to what would you call it? Sorry? No, I know it felt like I moved from a keke marwa to, let's say, maybe a G-Wagon, right? There are cars that you beg to respond. Now there are cars that are like, are you sure you want to go? Are you really sure? Are you really pressing this thing? Do you want to get there? Right? Literally, that's what it felt like, right? And all the operations were manual. Next slide, please. All the operations were manual. There was no API anything. Literally, it was just spreadsheets that we're using to serve our customers. The first month, I was the only person serving all the customers. Fun or not so fun fact. Please, next slide. Because of the stress of running the startup for that number of years, I hit my emotional burnouts like twice or thrice. But at that time, we were finally making money. There was no time to attend to any emotional problems because the stress was bad. But that is what it feels like when you are hitting the right human nerves. It will feel like an entire ocean of water is coming at you, and you need to figure out the pipes to channel the water into viable operations, into sustainable operations and sustainable revenue. So literally there's no platform, nothing automated, just spreadsheets like we have here, right? And we had customers from Nigeria and from different parts of the world literally trying to use the service. We don't understand why, but I mean, it happened. So if somebody says you want to spend money with me, I'm not going to say no, right? So it was very simple. Businesses pay us in Naira, we manually top up their Google Ad accounts, and that was it. It was working. Next slide. I think have I crossed 20 minutes already? All right. Okay, let me try to close it out. Right? And we had to stop marketing because the demand was just too much. We had to shut it down. The only thing we couldn't shut down was an article we put out there, and we're having new customers almost every day that we had to onboard. By month 2, I trained a number of people that were able to handle it alongside with me. I couldn't take my hands off. By month 3, those number of people, we got really good at it. And by month 3 or month 4, I was literally also getting married at the very same time. So fortunately, that's, aligned. Relax. No, calm down. No. Okay, this is advice for another kind of conversation, right? But the main thing is that we only built the technology only after we had validated that the human APIs were working, right? Does it make sense now? Human API is literally just a metaphor for the human context, that your product, your idea was a good fit for their context. Their context meaning the problems that they were solving and how much that they had to pay for to solve the problem, right? Next slide, please. Next slide. All right. So yeah, a few months later, we built like a proper interface, very simple interface, and marketing really restarted. Next slide. Right. And that was because there was real consumption now. People that could not run Google Ads before started running Google Ads. People that were frustrated literally just started. You know what? Now this thing exists. Let's get it done, right? So I'll talk about something called institutional voids, right? Institutional voids. These are gaps in market infrastructure that developed economies would literally take for granted. Look, so if you're in a developed economy, normally before GT Bank them started saying that your card could do this and do that, even with that, there are still limits. You put your card details in an app, you are sure the money will come out if there's money there, right? Am I correct? Here, you have to think twice. So essentially, we're able to solve an underlying institutional void that existed. I mean, but an institution existed, Google existed. The real problem was just payment. So we created a bridge, which was a Naira payment that we always had. It was a pure Naira play between us and Google and us and our customers. So we didn't need to really design much, right? But we solved the problem. I'll talk about pricing, which is trust and convenience. Does the transaction communicate safety to the customer, meaning that your price, is it viable in the head of the customer or just viable in your head alone, right? Will they think that it's too expensive for what they are trying to solve? And does the unit economics work, right? So that talks to the viability of your own business, right? So if they're able to pay the price that you're saying, will that price, number one, does it make sense to them? Does it feel like they can justify the price? And number two, if you use that price and scale your users, will it make business sense for you at the end of the day? Yeah? Seller literally could not achieve that, right? Obviously. But, I mean, with AdPay, I mean, it made literal sense, right? A very fun fact, we had customers that will, I mean, as we're succeeding, we're still doing customer interviews, user interviews, just to understand, okay, what are we doing right? What can we improve? We'll have customers stop us literally in the middle of the interview and pray for us. Real life story. And we had others that said, okay, we'll give you, put X amount of money in your Google Ads account if you refer us for every customer you refer. And some customers will say, hell no. Nobody can know my secrets. I'm getting lower cost per installs, cost per conversions that were impossible with a dollar account. So, okay.
And that was a reality that we had to deal with, right? But it was a good reality, yeah? And promotion, and final thing is, that's promotion. And in promotion, one of the key things you need to look out for is, are people intuitively eager and confident enough to share your product with other people? If your only growth driver is your marketing budget, you're doing something wrong. Yes. If your growth driver is only marketing budget, you're doing something wrong. We shut down marketing several times on AdPay, and every day we had a new customer. Every day we had a new customer, right? Compared to seller that you had to educate them about this, about that, it was really frustrating. Yeah, and we've been evolving. We've now built it. We built a larger, scope of products that we offer to. So people said, I want to pay for my cloud services. All the cloud services, we want to meet them. We have customers here that are struggling to pay. How can we help? And he said, we're able to arrange something, and we're able to bring it cheaper to customers than if they went directly themselves. All right. So yeah, I think that's it. Our quest still continues. Even when you find the answers, don't stop searching for more insights. Don't stop. Don't stop. Yeah. On that note, I'd like to thank you for your time. Yeah. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. A round of applause for our first keynote speaker for the day. I think that he deserves another round of applause. Thank you very much for your presence at ThinkUX 2025.